And welcome to the Social Justice Forums. I am your host, Daren Jaime. We thank you for joining us. Now, if you're asking the question, what is this show all about? Well, we bring you a forum discussing a deeper understanding on the issues as well as the inequities that so many people face. Things such as systemic inequalities, depressing social problems. Our guests provide multiple perspectives, insights, and better help us understand and address challenges. We also talk about things that are socially justice related. So we invite you to stay connected to us. The Social Justice Forum starts now. And we are back. The United States Mint is celebrating the bicentennial of Harriet Tubman's birth with a special commemorative coin program. The coins are designed to honor Harriet Tubman's legacy as an incredible abolitionist, Union Army scout, and an advocate for civil rights and women's suffrage. Joining me now to tell us more is the director of the United States Mint, the Honorable Ventris C. Gibson. And we thank you, Director Gibson, for taking the time and being with us here on the Social Justice Forum.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And so, as we share a little bit about this here, it's an important time, I guess, in the life of, both coins and then also history to find Harriet Tubman actually making it onto the coin. For somebody who doesn't know a little bit about this, talk to us about how we got here.
How we got here is the Underground Railroad Freedom Center, along with the Harriet Tubman Home in Auburn, New York, who are what we refer to as the recipient organizations under a commemorative coin program. They actually worked with members of Congress, specifically Congressman Meeks from New York, of course, and Congressman Rosen from Nevada. And they co sponsored a bill that went through to recognize not only Harriet Tubman on a commemorative coin, but also the Greatest Generation Museum, which is in Washington, D.C., for our World War II veterans. On Harriet, after it passed, the president, of course, signed it, and we were given the assignment as the United States Mint to design coins, a silver coin, a gold coin, and a third coin, which we refer to as silver clad, that actually represents the three different phases of her life and her tremendous trailblazing efforts that she's done for us as an African American people, but also for America, because I always say that Black history is American history. From that, we worked with the Freedom Center in Cincinnati, as well as the Harriet Tubman Home in Auburn, to our designers and our engravers to bring her coin to life, literally, in the gold and silver realm. So that's how we got here.
Yeah, and when we talk about it being here, it's out. The public is actually purchasing it. What has been the reception like seeing Harriet Tubman on coins?
The reception has been tremendously successful, very well received, and excited because Harriet Tubman, not only a trailblazer and a pioneer, as I shared earlier, but she influenced American history through not only leading enslaved people to freedom, through, as you said, being Army, she was an Army scout. She also planned and executed one of the most successful missions as a woman of color during slavery time that resulted in the freedom of 750 slaves in South Carolina, at what South Carolina refers to as the Combee, but we know it as Combahee. That's all right, and successfully did so. So her efforts just are phenomenal. And I am just one of the people that stand on the shoulders of her and so many others, but primarily her, because I can't be in this position or where I am today without what she did for us as a people and us as a nation.
And when we talk about you yourself, obviously, that was the question I was going to ask because when you look at, you're the director of the United States Mint, and not only are you the director of the Mint, now you're overseeing the production of these coins, and they're actually out there hitting the public. And as a woman of
Mhm.
color, looking at the life and the legacy of Harriet Tubman, and then you yourself being the one that's actually green lighting this to the American and the world, what's that like for you?
It has been a wonderful, heartwarming, and defining moment in my life because the United States Mint, one, has been around since 1792. And we have been the primary, if not only, producer of American coinage in the United States is used for circulating and gold purposes, etc. But what it means to me and what her accomplishments were is simply remarkable. We today have a responsibility to make sure that we get up and go because, as you might recall, Harriet Tubman really didn't leave anyone behind. Out of the 13 trips she made, she didn't leave anyone behind. They were never caught, they didn't starve. In fact, in between her trips, she worked to make sure that her journeys people didn't have to worry about food or clothing or anything. So it means so much to me as an African American woman, as the first African American of the Mint to be around because when we say connecting America through coins, it's not just connecting coin collectors that have existed for many, many years and we love our collectors, but it's about reaching out to our communities. And as you know, we've done the AME Zion General Conference. We've gone to the Freedom Center and had a fireside chat. We've talked with members of Congress, the Congressional Black Caucus. We've done so much and reached Jack and Jill, and we've talked with our sororities and our fraternities through others. So we're reaching into the Black community to make sure they know about this Harriet Tubman coin because right now we have sold slightly over 50,000.
That's amazing. And usually,
Yes.
when you look at a coin such as this and it hitting out there in the public, what was your thought process in terms of would people swoop this up? Would this be something that had to be, bought into by people in terms of, just letting the public know, a lot of awareness having to be given? What was your anticipation as the coin was getting ready to hit from the, from public?
The anticipation for me was the collaboration and partnership with the Freedom Center and her home to make sure that our artist depicted exactly what we needed to say and what we need to see as we held this beautiful coin. And the anticipation was let's make sure we flood as many of the markets where African Americans are and others so that they can embrace this coin, purchase this coin, save this coin, especially in the gold realm, because it's an investment strategy as well. And for me, as an African American, I just could not believe that our reach has been so successful because it's been so well received. And just Monday, I spoke to the Blacks in Government Conference, which had 3,000 people in attendance. And I talked about her and her legacy and what we need to do to not only make that anticipation a reality, but also know that we have a responsibility to our youth. And I'll give you a couple of examples throughout the interview, very short, of course. But can I just say one example that really shook me? And that is the majority of the people at the conference that I spoke at on Monday did not know about the Harriet Tubman coin. So I'm going to have our staff do another press release. I'm going to try and flood the market again to make sure that whoever doesn't does, because the program ends in December.
Mm.
And I would love for us to sell out of her coin. And I think it's possible. It's just we have to really do the work. So having this interview with you, I thank you for that because that is helpful.
Yeah, so the public does have an opportunity to still be able to purchase these Harriet Tubman coins. How do they go about doing that if they're watching right now?
usmint.gov slash catalog.
All right.
Yes.
And there you can find out all about the Harriet Tubman coins. If you're just joining us now, we are pleased to be joined by the Honorable Ventris Gibson, who is the director of the United States Mint. We've been talking a lot about the Harriet Tubman coins, but Director Gibson, while I got you here, you got to tell us a little bit more about the work that you do. If somebody asks, who is the director of the U.S. Mint? We know that's you, but talk to us about the work that you do at the Mint.
The United, like I said earlier, is back dating back to 1792. our mission is pretty much fourfold, three of which are codified. The first is we're responsible for circulating coins in the nation, and that is nickels, dimes, pennies, quarters, half dollars, etc. We work with the Federal Reserve to ensure that when they place an order for circulating coins, that is what we spend, then we meet that order in what they've requested, and then it's further distributed to the banks in the United States and overseas. That's number one. Number two, we're responsible for what we call the bullion program, and that is a gold investment program that we have in silver that that people make investments through the purchase of gold. And then our third program is the numismatics or coin collecting, where we do various programs like the Harriet Tubman, like Generation, the Greatest Generation, and many others, as well as congressional gold medals and other precious metals. And then, last but not least, but very important, we're responsible for protection of the nation's gold reserve, which is through Fort Knox. I have 1,700, nearly 1,700 employees in six facilities, and my responsibility is to provide executive leadership oversight of all of us. And we get no money from the federal government. We have to earn our keep through the bullion program, through commemorative programs, etc., and coin collecting.
So what you're trying to tell me is I'm talking to the person that's in charge of Fort Knox. Is that right?
That's right.
Well, and we're talking to the person in charge of Fort Knox. Also, a part of the Mint, too, is also up in West Point, New York. Can you share with us a little bit about the history for those of us who are in New York who don't know about the Mint in West Point, New York, and what makes that Mint in West Point so special?
The Mint in West Point was an assay office. That is where you look at the coin and its contents, etc. And it was in New York City, and a decision was made to move that and the associated gold that it uh, maintained to a facility that could specialize specifically in the bullion that is the gold program. So their primary mission is to administer to the nth degree of perfection gold and silver coins.
Amazing.
They do not do circulating. In fact, Philadelphia and Denver are the two facilities that do all of the nickels, dimes, pennies, and quarters. And just as a reference point, during the pandemic, we did 14 billion coins a year. We're now doing about 9 billion a year. So
Wow.
we've kind of stabilized since then. That's a lot of coins.
It is a lot. It is a lot of coins, and a lot of coins are out there for sure. Ventris, Honorable Ventris Gibson, our guest here on the social justice. When we talk about social justice, two things we talk about in this show. We have diversity, equity, and inclusion. We hear that conversation a lot in a lot of the organizations and the offices that we talk to. When it comes to the Mint, talk to me about diversity, equity, and inclusion because, to be honest, I mean, people are just now finding out there's a woman of color that's actually running the U.S. Mint. But we know historically that's not always the case.
That's right. That's right. I joined, and I have to give honor and appreciation to the President of the United States, President Biden, because when I received the call from the White House, it was a little interesting when I ultimately said yes to the U.S. Mint. That my background was more about people leadership and making sure people were taken care of, compared to having a significant knowledge of manufacturing or coining. And I went ahead, I accepted the position because I love a challenge and I knew it would be a heavy lift for me, but that's okay. I believe in public service and thought this would be a wonderful opportunity. But what's very interesting about it is one of the reasons why they came after me for this job is the Mint suffered from the lack of diversity and some other issues that they had faced. And I believe they believed that I could solve the problem. So I created what we call a blueprint for transformation for diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. Uh, Hired someone, looked at my demographics of people of color and other persons with disabilities, veterans, etc., and then put that plan in action. Today, we have more minorities at the grade 14 and 15 level than when I walked in the door. I hired someone to do civility training as well as psychologically safe training, and making sure that part of diversity, equity, and inclusion has an outreach specialist that can help us outreach to all of the groups based on our coining. And in this case, Harriet Tubman, I told him, go forth and find organizations that we need to get into the community in. And some have been very, very successful. And I am very, very happy that we have turned the corner. The federal wide employee viewpoint survey when I came was pretty dismal. We have upped that by 20 something percentage points, so we're moving in the right direction. I love my employees, and forgive me for saying this, but I pray for the U.S. Mint and our employees every day
Mhm.
because they are a highly professional and dedicated workforce.
Don't have to ask forgiveness over here. You're talking to the wrong person right here. You ask. Listen, you say it and let it be said. I want to talk a little bit more from the perspective of the community because there's this community awareness, and when we talk about coin collecting, let's just be honest. In communities of color, it's not always at the forefront. And when we go to coin shows and things of that nature, you're not always seeing African Americans, people of color. What can be done to first educate people and help them to understand that there is something in coin collecting that's really worth pursuing?
The first is starting at the elementary school level. We have discovery sets and other educational materials. We even have a dedicated education site on usmint.gov that the kids can go on, that parents can go on and begin to have conversations with their children about coin collecting. Also, talk with some of the uncles and some of the aunts and others because I found out after becoming the U.S. Mint director that my first cousin, who I was close to for millions of years almost, was a coin collector.
Mm.
And he was like, "Oh, I don't have to go through the process." I said, "Oh, yes, you do."
That's right. There's
So
no family discount here.
exactly. So we have gone out to schools every coin show. We take our education public affairs officer with us. We have comic books for persons of color. There's so many things we have. And even kids can go on our website and play online games regarding coining, but it's getting the message out. And one of the things that I thought was very interesting about the Freedom Center in Cincinnati, which is phenomenal, is that when I did the fireside chat, there were more non minorities in the fireside chat than African Americans,
Mm.
and by 10 to 1.
Wow.
And yet, the rest of the museum was full of African Americans walking around looking. So, getting them in that place to sit and hear about our heroes, about our history, and what expectations. For me, when we talk community, it for me it has always started with the church. And the Black church has always been an integral part of the community. It starts with local politics because local politics dictates what the outcomes are and the growth of national policy. And thus, making sure we're connecting with the Congressional Black Caucus, with those at our local level, and also reining in people who have that experience and can begin to speak to our communities in a manner that we receive it, such as through your program
Thank you.
and through yes, I mean, this is where it has to start, and we can't give up because there are those that would like to see us be, quote, second class citizens, and that's not going to happen.
When you have these conversations and there's an awareness that's actually shared, talk to me about the reception that's given after after you give them, hey, this is something that you should know, consider and take part of. What is the reaction that you actually receive, particularly in communities of color, after you make them familiar with coin collecting?
I think they're very excited. When we went to the AME Zion Church, the sales there for the coin were phenomenal. The Blacks in Government Conference, people were excited. If I had a booth there, I probably would have sold out, and we did sell out of some of the products in at the AME Zion Church General Conference. So the excitement is there. People are receiving it regardless of age and gender, and that is exciting, but we have to keep the message going. We cannot stop. And it's occurring outside of Black History Month, but yes, we can include it in Black History Month, but we should always be about making sure that our people know what our history is, where we've come from, and what we need to do to continue. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And for young people, I mean, obviously you talked about the fact of being in the schools and having the schools become a part of this, a part of the connection.
Mhm.
Are we finding now that more and more schools are being connected to know about this, to get youngsters involved at an early age, so that way when they grow old, you don't hit, as the old saying says, they don't depart from this either.
That's right. That's right. And so our outreach program for our schools, not only HBCUs as well, that's at the at the college level, but also making sure that if, for example, we had a quarter named after Dr. Sally Ride, the first woman astronaut to space, and we went to the Sally Ride Elementary School, and the kids all drew new coins that they would like to see for Sally Ride. So that education outreach is happening. It takes a minute because there are a lot of kids in schools, obviously, but it's engaging with those from those communities like Jack and Jill, as an example, like our sororities who do outreach, like Blacks in Government who exists nationwide. So it's really making our mark and keeping the tone where we need it to be. As far as youth are concerned, we also have to remember that youth have varying interests. We just signed a deal with Warner Brothers to bring about what we call DC Comics, and that is we're going to make Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman on coins. And we gave the public an opportunity to participate in a survey to define the next six superheroes. So we have that where people are very excited. We have the American music coming up, and I can't say much other than that's what we're doing, where we're stepping into a new era where we can attract new and diverse customers to uh, coining and coin collecting. Um, hey, we sent, oh, you would love this. We sent, well, not we, but NASA sent two pennies, Lincoln cents as we call them,
Hmm.
into space the last shuttle ride, calling it Pennies for Heaven.
Wow. So that's pretty interesting. Penny's up there. All right, I got you. I got you. Listen, and,
Yeah.
and so Spider-Man's gonna be on a coin?
If you voted for Spider Man, you could possibly see it.
All right, all right. Well, listen, this is, I mean, exciting stuff. It's stuff that I don't think that everybody would think about. You know, I mean, when we think about coins, we think about pennies, nickels, dimes, quarters, and that. But to know that there are so many other things that are tied to, coinage, is it's amazing. For you yourself, I mean, this, as you said, this is what you've always done. But what is, stuck out as like one of the most memorable moments for you in all the work that you've done so far in working as the director of the Mint?
The memorable moments for me is when I looked when after I had visited all facilities and all of the shifts because we're 24/7 operation. Uh, I said I want to make coins too. I want to see what it feels like to walk in the shoes of the workforce, so that if they came to me with an issue, I knew how to respond because I knew what the work entailed. And I, for a shift I didn't do did I do the 8 hours? I think I did almost 8 hours. And I ran seven presses and made $35 million in quarters for the national economy. And I have to tell you, at the end of that shift, I was exhausted.
Wow.
So I knew exactly what they went through. And then all the other facilities said, "Well, you got to do a shift here and you have to do a shift there." But that's one of my proudest moments. The other proudest moment was on Friday. The United States Mint, out of 4,000 coins worldwide, won the International Coin of the Year award.
Wow. Wow.
And it is the coin. It is a beautiful coin. And then to top it off, we also won Best Gold Coin of the Year internationally. And so we're getting our footing. We're doing great things because the team is a good team.
Yeah.
And when they come to me with an idea, I go, "That's good. Let's do it. Let's try it."
Well, listen, you're a visionary, and certainly I think that shows in your leadership and what you've been able to do. And the things that you've been able to really convey to the greater public through your work. And I think all of us who kind of like know you and know the work that you've done are very proud of the steps that you're making, really in helping to advance the cause, and then also to create awareness in places where probably people would never be aware and never think that this is, never think this is possible. What advice do you have for somebody who's thinking, listen, you know what, maybe this is an area I want to go in. Maybe there's somebody who's watching right now and say, I want to be a U.S. Mint director when I grow up. What advice do you give them?
I would say that always put your best foot forward. My father trained us in various sayings, and the one that we embrace the most is good, better, best. Never let it rest until your good is better and your better is best. And then, secondly, which has to do with my personal choice, is I try and operate by faith, by obedience, by seeking to be the best Christian possible. Though I know there are many challenges to everyone, but just to, speaking of Harriet Tubman as well, her faith is what led her to be as successful, and her communications with the Lord. So I try and walk that disciplined path, and to make sure everyone knows that I'm not ashamed of the gospel.
Hey, that's all right. That's all right.
But
I
put your
want
best foot forward. Yep.
to, yeah, well, and you have. I want to get to a couple things before we leave out of here. Again, number one, the Harriet Tubman coin. You mentioned earlier that there's a window now. Let's talk about this window so people who want to take part in this. What's the window of opportunity for people who want to get the coin?
The legislation or the law now requires that on December 31st of this year, 2024, that ends the Harriet Tubman commemorative coin program. And that means I have no authority under the law to sell anymore. That's pretty much what it means. That's our window. So you got to purchase by December 31st. And there are no options for me to mail it January 3rd. It's just not. We have to make sure that you have entered into and paid for the coin prior to December 31st.
And sometimes when it comes, well, not sometimes, we say, and with the gold coins, as we know, as the price of gold goes up, so does the price of the coin.
Yes, it does. Yes. Someone came up and wanted 6 gold coins, and we were so excited about that. And when they got to pay, they thought that 6 times 5 is what, 30?
Right.
They thought that because it's a $5 gold coin that it would cost $5. So, so some situational awareness is helpful. But what the Mint tries to do is to have a range of affordability in the purchase from the clad through the gold, and you up to the gold. That's a number of us did.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, and if you look at your coin, if I could just let you know that the gold coin is representative of all she did to lead enslaved people of freedom. The silver is about hers, about social justice, about freedom, about liberty, about her faith, about things that she did that were right, fairness, integrity, and trust, all of those values. And then the third is about that army part and the nurse part, as well as the scout. So it captures the 3 parts of her life for us.
Yeah. And so, again, we want to give people the website to be able to go, and where they go if they want to get this coin again.
usmint.gov.
Yes. I want to let you know it's been an honor to talk to you, and thank you for taking the time of being here on the social justice forums. I know you've got some personal things that you're wrestling with and dealing with, and to take the time for this interview that we've been trying to do for a minute. I want you to just thank you and say I appreciate seeing you, and thank you for taking the time for us here at the Social Justice Forum.
Yes, and hopefully we'll see you in September.
All righty. Well, listen, I want to let everybody know we are taking a quick break, and guess what? If you want to know, we were just talking with the director of the United States Mint, the Honorable Ventris Gibson, and we thank her for being with us. We're taking a quick break, and we got more open, I should say not open, but social justice coming up right after this. You can also catch me on Open, but that's another show.
What's up, creative family? Discover your voice with BronxNet community media classes. Are you ready to bring your ideas to life? At BronxNet, we offer television production classes for community members ages 18 and over, empowering you to share your vision with the world. Get certified in field production, in-studio production, and our new exciting addition, podcast production. Once certified, you can create your own show to air on one of our 6 TV channels. It all starts with our free Unleash Your Ideas Masterclass, designed to help you plan your show idea and set you up for success on your production journey. This class is offered at the beginning of each month for your convenience. Our dedicated BronxNet team is here to support, encourage, and uplift you every step of the way. Join us and become a part of the creative force that engages and inspires the Bronx community and beyond. Sign up today and start your media journey with BronxNet. Visit bronxnet.org/education to learn more and register. Let's create something amazing together.
And welcome back. In the heart of the South Bronx, where challenges often seem insurmountable, our next guest has forged a path of hope and transformation. She's faced the odds head-on, overcoming the struggles of teen pregnancy and a system that's often dismissing those from minority backgrounds. Her journey from a challenging childhood to earning advanced degrees, nothing short of remarkable. And yet, rather than leaving her past behind, she returned to her community with a mission, providing the kind of education to change lives. Here now, we're pleased to have the author of The Fight for Equity in the Bronx, Dr. Elaine Ruiz López, and Dr. Elaine Ruiz López here with us. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Daren.
A pleasure to have you on this conversation, because when we talk about the fight for equity, honestly, for yourself, it's been a long-standing battle. But when you talk about equity, I always like to begin with this. People make a differentiation between equity and equality. There's two different things. And your fight was for equity. Explain the difference between both for us.
Well, that's a very interesting question that you pose. I believe that you cannot have equality without equity. Equity in education, equity in housing, equity in healthcare, and how children, are being provided with the resources that they need in order to excel and become productive citizens in society.
And when you look at where you are in the South, in the Bronx, we talk about the fact that there is this educational inequity. From your lens, walk us through how we got to where we are today.
Well, I could begin with my personal story. Born and raised in the boogie down Bronx, the home of salsa and hip hop, during a time where the Bronx was burning, and then becoming a teenage mom, being pushed out of high school, earning a GED, to then pursuing a degree in teaching and going back to the South Bronx. In the midst of, when the South Bronx looked like a war zone. I had many, examples to draw from, fortunately, that gave me my first awakening in terms of the need to step up and fight for social justice and to not accept the discrimination, the racism, and the poor quality of education and healthcare. I learned that at a very tender age of 13. My first example of organizations that were fighting against the power structures were the Young Lords Party, who took over Lincoln Hospital, a hospital that I was born in 1956, and that later, the Young Lords Party took it over, and in order to bring national attention to the fact that, there was poor quality health care, and that hospital actually, as you know, gained the reputation of being called the butcher shop.
Right.
They also brought national attention to the poor sanitation conditions, as well as poor conditions in the public school system. I was born and raised on Simpson Street, and I attended elementary school in the infamous, Fort Apache sector, or what was named Fort Apache by that, racist movie that was depicted by Paul Newman at the time. And so I have firsthand experience of what it was like to live in the South Bronx as a child, walking to school across the street from the Fort Apache precinct, and observing my environment and understanding, that there was something seriously wrong with, how myself and others were living and how we were being treated.
Can I jump in for a second and talk about this inequity? Because when you look at the inequity that you faced as a child, obviously growing up in this inequity, the time, the culture. Now we look at the year 2024, and you could say right there, a lot of similarities between then and now, how the inequity exists. From your perspective, how does the inequity really affect our students today as compared to back then?
Well, I agree with you. There are many similarities that can be drawn from, when I was attending elementary school and when students now are attending elementary school. So, today we have more of a focus, the public school system and charter schools in particular have more of an intentional focus on assuring that students are receiving an academically rigorous curriculum and that no one gets lost through the cracks. At the very minimum, we know that, there are a lot of efforts that are being made to differentiate instruction for students with disabilities and students who are English language learners and who are immigrants to this country. We also know that, the brutality that many members of the community experienced in the 70s, 80s, and 90s is still very present and rising. So I also, as in my 20s and my 30s, I had an opportunity to march alongside of, community and social activists, not only demanding bilingual education for immigrant students who are entitled to these services, but also demanding, fair and equitable treatment by, institutions that were in place to support and help the community, such as the police department. So I found myself, while working on my master's, also, joining the National Congress for Puerto Rican Rights, which was founded by some of the members of the Young Lords Party. And so I joined that organization in the 80s and learned a great deal about speaking truth to power and really what it meant in order to speak, on behalf of others that did not have a voice.
Yeah. And when you talk about having a voice and others who didn't have a voice, that was kind of like the impetus for your work, that you really became a voice for those who didn't have one and those who needed to have their voice articulated. You took that and decided that you were going to form a charter school, but not without a struggle. So for yourself, pioneering this charter school and creating, talk to us about what it was like to really get there and the road of adversity that was faced in trying to create this charter school.
Well, first, to put it into context, today there are approximately 240 charter schools in New York City. 15% of the New York City public school students attend charter schools, so approximately 142,000 students are attending charter schools today. We started the charter high school, the first charter high school in the Bronx in 2006. And it was the intent and the mission that still remains today is to prepare every student for college. Um, the challenges appeared to be insurmountable at the time. And within 6 months of our opening, the power structure, mainly the Department of Education, decided that they did not want our school and tried to shut us down within 6 months of opening. So of course, we fought back. The parents, wanted this school in the community as an alternative to, the violent high schools that students were attending and the high schools that were not graduating Black and brown children. I believe that at the time, the graduation rate in the Bronx may have been 50%. 18 years later, we've been able to graduate we have an average track record of a 95% graduation rate, and 100% of our students who graduate and apply to college are accepted to the college of their choice.
Amazing. And that's a great statistic to ask this question about representation in education, because when you have representation in education, getting those numbers that you talked about could be really achievable. But if there's a lack of representation, sometimes we see a lot of our students fall off the boat simply because there is this lack in the classroom, in administration. How important is that representation?
Well, representation matters. So education for us, by us is a quote and a tagline that's used by a coalition that our charter school is also a member of. The Black Latinx Asian Charter Collaborative started this organization in 2018. Reverend Al Cockfield, Marian Rocca, Dr. Charlene Reed, Dr. Steve Perry, and others got together and in order to galvanize the power and the potential of the charter school leaders of color, who, like in my case, are leading community-grown charter schools. Not charter schools that are run by charter management organizations, but charter schools that, have roots in the community. So representation matters, and there is an effort to lift the New York State charter cap on charter schools. There is an effort to fight for fiscal equity for charter schools. Right now, the funding for charter schools is 30% less than what students who attend traditional public schools receive. So charter school leaders have the burden of raising that additional money and figuring it out.
Yeah, pardon me for cutting you on there. I wanted to talk to you about your perspective on charter schools and why you feel it's important that people have the access and the opportunity to attend charter schools.
Absolutely. So charter schools, first and foremost, are public schools. They're schools of choice. They're considered nonprofit. We all had to apply for our 501c3s, but we're a public school. We have to abide by, New York State regulations. We're authorized by the State University of New York Charter Schools Institute. So the charter school concept is to allow parents and students to have choice in the type of school that they attend, an alternative to the New York City public school system. And as a result, it's been very controversial from the inception. There's a great deal of concern that, charter schools are undermining the New York City public school system. And in my opinion, charter schools in many sectors have been able to share their practices with traditional public schools and not to compete, but to show what's possible in terms of providing a quality education where every single student is treated, as a gifted and talented student. Every single student is expected to achieve and graduate. I also believe that, it's imperative that, those who are opposed to charter school understand that this is a parent and community choice. There are 142,000 students who attend charter schools in New York City today. And there's a reason for that, and the numbers are growing. And there was a recent study called the Credo study that was a long-term empirical study that shows the remarkable performance and success of charter schools in comparison to other school systems, not only in New York, but nationally as well.
When we look at the fact that so many students have really had the opportunity to excel by having an opportunity to have charter schools, particularly in urban locations. I've interviewed several administrators who said to have a charter school in an urban location really is an accelerator in the life of a student. From your perspective, how do you view charter schools, particularly when it comes to being involved in urban areas? How do you see that future playing out?
Well, I am hopeful, and optimistic that those legislators who are holding back and resisting the inevitable change and the need for charter schools will, come to a place of supporting communities of color, and particularly schools that are led by leaders of color. The research also shows that students who have teachers and principals and administrators of color are doing much better as compared with schools that do not.
And when you look at the future, how do you see things playing out in the future? I mean, obviously a lot of controversy still surrounds here in New York City. Are you optimistic that we're also going to be able to get over some of these hurdles and really see charter schools full bloom?
I believe that is possible, and a lot of it relies upon the advocacy work of local and national organizations, the advocacy on behalf of the parents and students. Every year and a couple of times a year within the past year, there have been quite a number of protests and advocacy days where busloads of students go up to Albany asking for their voices to be heard, not only on increasing equity, fiscal equity for each charter school student, but also in supporting, a choice, because this is a choice.
It is, it is. And for people who want more information about your book, obviously The Fight for Equity is a great read in terms of having people understand the journey. How do people get in touch with you in terms of finding out more?
Sure. Well, there are a few ways. One is researching, just going to my book's website, Dr. Elaine Ruiz Lopez.com. And also to purchase the book, it could be easily purchased through Amazon. I'm pleased to say that in 8 weeks, it's become a bestseller on Amazon and #1 in various categories. So I'm very proud of this particular accomplishment. And by the way, all the royalties have been assigned for a scholarship fund to support first-year college students with their tuition, fees, books, et cetera.
Oh, that's amazing. That's a great job there in terms of supporting students. And for yourself, what does it feel like to be able to give back, given the fact that you had to be resilient really to get to where you are, and now knowing that the battle still exists for so many other students? What's that like, being able to give back to help somebody out and also make it over the top?
It's a 360 moment for me, and it's also is part of my purpose. I believe that we all have a God-given purpose, and my purpose was to become an educator and to support young people in achieving their dreams. So it feels very good.
Yeah. And
Feels very good.
what advice do you have for the community when in terms of activism? Because as your your life dictates, you were an activist from the jump and had a lot of early intervention in the lives of so many people when it came to education, health inequities, all those things put together. You really were there. What advice do you have for people about getting involved, staying active, and helping somebody to find that voice so that way they can make the impact like you made?
Very good question. So I'll start with the vision that I have for our alumni. You know, our alumni, are in touch. They come back. We have some alumni that are currently working at our charter school, and the message to them is to be the change that they want to see in the world, and that it is expected that they come back to give back to their community, whether it be as a teacher, a business person, a board member, but certainly, to continue taking the gift and the privilege that they've been given and applying it to improve the lives of others. We exist to improve the lives of others and to serve others. And that is my missive, and it's something that I message to parents as well, not to be afraid to join the fight, because it is a good fight.
Yeah, it is a good fight. How much has the fight changed since COVID? I mean, I know I talk to administrators all the time and teachers who say, listen, we had issues before then. Some things have become further exacerbated as that learning gap for so many of our students has changed simply because of the COVID and the virus.
Yes, well, our charter school and charter schools throughout the city and throughout the country, all schools in general, have had to work harder and smarter when it comes to closing the achievement gaps that were caused, by, the coronavirus pandemic. So it also impacted attendance as well as enrollment in many schools throughout New York City, not just charter schools, but traditional public schools as well. I believe that Chancellor Banks started the school year, at a press conference, speaking about, the under enrollment in its schools. It did have an impact. However, we are bouncing back. And, 2020, we had a graduation. We were one of the few charter schools that remained open in a hybrid model in order to ensure that our scholars did not fall, behind. So I'm proud to say that, we've had a graduation. Of course, that 2020 graduation was inside of a tent, on the campus at the University of Mount St. Vincent outdoors, but we had a graduation nonetheless.
Beautiful time, beautiful time. For yourself, what's the highlight of your career so far?
Is being able to see the alumni come back and work in various positions at our charter school, as well as, keeping in touch with the alumni and knowing what amazing things that they're doing. We have alumni that already have, completed their master's degrees and are working in different professions throughout, the city. The highlight for me annually is the graduation, because I didn't have a graduation. I didn't have a high school graduation because I was pushed out of high school. And so every graduation is very affirming. So it's a big celebration.
Yeah. And when we look at today's student, what can you give us as a nugget that maybe we should be paying attention to that in the lives of today's students that maybe the wider public is not so privy to, or we tend to overlook? What are we missing in the blind spot when it comes to today's student?
Well, today's student, what comes to mind is that, the attention span is a little bit shorter. And I think it's as a result of social media. So you have very often, in order to convey a message, it has to be in sound bites, because having very long explanations doesn't work as well. However, we have to, develop our students and be intentional about, promoting critical thinking skills and promoting focus and concentration, because of all of the distractions that we have today, that they have today. It makes it much harder for them to focus, on a course of study.
And that course of study is definitely needed. Well, I should say not definitely. The course of study is definitely rigorous. Let's put it like that. And the rigorous course of study that so many students face today is challenging, and it requires a lot of attention. But with so many issues and the inequities that, as we talk about in the show, the inequities that people face, that sometimes being able to deal with the rigor of study is second. It's second to life. It's second to having to, navigate family. It's second to thinking about the job that I have to do. And particularly, I'm not talking about a lot of colleges and universities, but, when you look at, city universities and SUNY schools and community colleges, these are all things that really a student has to contend with.
Absolutely. And it's a real thing, right? Having to, after a full day of studying, leaving to a job, sometimes two jobs, it's very challenging. And I really admire and respect the student that is doing what they can to support their families who may not have, the income that is needed in order to survive in this city.
Yeah. And once again, for people who want more information, her book is The Fight for Equity in the Bronx. We've got Dr. Elaine Ruiz López, who's been sharing with us a little bit of her journey, and not just the journey for herself, but students. It's a journey of community, education, racism, social justice, all those things wrapped up in one. Thank you for the work that you've done. It's a great body of work. And also thank you for the work in writing the book. I know it was a long time coming, but you've finally made it across the finish line there.
Thank you so much, Daren. Thank you.
All righty. Dr. Elaine. Yes, Ruiz López, our guest, and thank you. I want to let you know we come to the end of our show today. I hope you enjoyed this week's discussion on the Bronx Social Justice and Anti-Violence Forum. If you're rewatching this week's edition, well, the Recablecast right here on BronxNet.org. Now, if you want to share on the conversation, present your point of view, well, go ahead to social media. Hit us up at BronxNet TV. We encourage you to join us next week. We continue elevating the discussion and bringing further awareness across the globe. I'm your host, Daren Jaime, saying take care. God bless.